my first assignment was in Kaohsiung. Like I said, I got there, and then I was enjoying myself. I'm going to school and I'm teaching my kids, and I'm like, and then I get feedback that no, they're not understanding me. I'm Michelle.
And I'm Joy.
I live in the US.
And I live in England.
And we were across the world
on a mission.
So welcome to our next episode, which this episode we're going to be talking about meeting our students. So we are in Japan, Taiwan, and Ukraine, yes, and we are off to meet our students for the very first time. What did that look like for you?
Okay, so before even meeting the students, we were introduced to the curriculum that we were going to use to teach them. As was discussed before, I didn't have an orientation. So we, the teachers, were working alongside our director to choose the best curriculum for the students, which at the time it went with, I see your true color shining through. Don't know if you know that line of book, but we loved that so much at the time. It was called True Colors. And we chose that curriculum because we found, as native speaker, it encourages the students to, converse more. And the whole thing is about, conversational English. They would get the grammar from the Ukrainian students. So we chose True Colors. And then our schedule was evenings. Obviously, from 3:30 onwards to 9, that's when we were in classes teaching. So that was our schedule. What was your schedule like?
So basically, like you said, it's very similar. Mm-hmm. We did have our schedules given to us prior. We did have our classes that we would be teaching giving to us as well. So we know, like, if we were teaching A1, A2, we had the classes had different names. We had Bible classes as well that would be throughout the day. We'd have at least 2 Bible classes throughout the day, and then we would have English classes. So just a little bit of background to what we were doing. We were student missionaries, meaning we were also student teachers. So we taught English as well as Bible in our different classes. So we had conversational Bible classes, conversational English classes. And we were based in schools that were language schools. So they weren't like a public school, they were private institution, and they were language institutions. And so most of our classes were also in the afternoons, mm-hmm. But I did also have some morning classes. Most of the times people would be gone to work or to school, and then after school they would come to our English language centers to have Bible classes and English classes. I remember my schedule in Taiwan being in the mornings, I think from 9 something to about 10, 11. And then we had a break in between all the way up until the afternoon, I think about 3:30ish or 4 up until maybe 10 p.m. at night. So it was a very different schedule, but you had like a long break in the middle of the day. And it was similar for Japan as well. I had morning classes and I had evening classes. So
for me, I didn't have any morning classes, to be honest.
Oh.
We pretty much had the whole day to ourselves until about 2, when we had to meet at the office for worship.
Right.
And, to discuss what we're going to do in the class, or if there's any things, any questions or anything like that we needed addressing before class started, then we would address those at that time. But we were pretty much at home from morning until about 2 when we were in the office. And so I had my mornings, didn't have to get up super early to go to any classes. I use that time to, pretty much do my own worship and so on. So once we got into the office at 2, then would have worship with the staff, which is the um, English, well, initially the other English teacher, which was Katrina at the time. And then we would have the native speakers who were doing the grammar lessons. They would also have, grammar classes. The school, we were using a school, we were renting an office in a school, like a nominal school at the time. That's what we had. We didn't have a center, like a Seventh-day Adventist center there. Yes, we had the international church that we would go to on a Sabbath morning, where the missionaries would lead out in worship services. But we didn't have like Bible on like an everyday. It's only Friday evenings that we would have like the whole evening dedicated to Bible classes. And the whole evening. But our conversational classes would be any topic that we would want to discuss. At the time, I told you the hot topic was me coming from Jamaica, Bob Marley, my culture, stuff like that. They would want to know about, me. And at the time, I wanted to know about them coming out of, breaking away from the Soviet Union as it was then, back in 1989. And I was asking a lot of questions about the exit and all of those stuff. So we were having conversational classes around that, what was life like and all of those things. So it was quite interesting.
A little bit different, but similar.
Similar.
Yeah. So first day, I'm at school. I go into the classroom and I'm a little nervous because, I had prior experience teaching because I had done some teaching prior to even going to college. So it was along the lines, I am a teacher even now. So I did enjoy teaching, but I was nervous as to how was it even going to be possible for me to teach English to people who didn't know English at all. So when I got there, I remember the secretary taking me to my classroom, introducing me to my students, each classroom that I started at. And like I said, I was first in Taiwan. I was first in Kaohsiung. And I went into my classroom. I didn't have a very big classroom. I had met students who were kids. I had students who were adults. And, there were various age ranges. And I just remember them being so interested and excited about meeting their new teacher. And I felt very happy and comfortable in meeting them because they were so excited about getting to know who you were, where you came from, and, those different things. So my first day was actually pretty good. I loved my students right off the bat. And I loved the setting. The setting felt very calm and easygoing. It wasn't very rigid. It was very relaxed. So yeah, my first day in Taiwan. In Japan, I'd already been to Taiwan, so it was going back. And in Japan, I knew what to expect. The only difference was that in Japan we had, I think, fairly bigger classrooms. And we had a lot of kids, and that was like in my realm because I love teaching little kids. So yeah.
I had 2 experiences actually. One for the classroom and one for my Bible class. My Bible class was actually the first time I met some of the students that I was going to teach, right? And that was a very, very marked experience for me. I remember the lady who was leading out at the time, her name was Linda, and she was leading out in a Bible study because remember I told you I was there for a little period before we actually started classes. So we have Friday night meetings every single Friday. And this particular Friday, she was having the meeting. And this was, I think, the Friday before we started on the Monday. And the students came. and was quite a lot. We were sitting like in a circle because she was doing a Bible study about the second coming of Jesus. And I remember when she's from another school. Actually, she's from, we were the missionary school at the time there, and she was teaching at another English language center, but it wasn't obviously Seventh Adventist based, like, with the conference and everything like that. But she comes to the international church, so she was asked to, and she's obviously Adventist, so she was asked to lead out. If you wanted to know who this Linda person was, she was also American, but me and Katrina was the only one from the mission school. So anyway, she was leading out the Bible study, and I remember she was talking about, the second return of Jesus and those who want to go with him. And I remember her asking the question, as you do at the end of a Bible study, you're asking, those who want to go with Jesus when he comes, raise your hands. I was sitting between two gentlemen, one on my right, one on my left. And I was sitting there, looking at them when she asked that question, because obviously they were intrigued by, me being there as the first time they're seeing a Black woman. And, so I sat between them, and we were talking before even the study. So when the study went on, I thought they were obviously moved by the study. And when I didn't see them raising their hands, I rose my hand. And then when I rose my hand, I said to them, "You don't want to go with Jesus when he comes?" And I was looking at them like that. And one of them said, "I don't know if I want to go with Jesus when he comes. I don't know Jesus. Who is he? I don't know if I trust him." That was their answer, but obviously in broken English, obviously. And I picked out what they were saying. And to be honest with you, I was blown away by that reaction, because I'd never before. Remember, I'm from a religious country. Jamaica is has the most churches per square miles in the world. If you go and research that. So it's very religious, and everybody knows about God, and everybody knows about, even if they don't believe, they know that there's Jesus and so on. So for me to hear for the first time somebody don't want to go with him and don't know if they trust him, it's like I was awoken to why I was actually there, to make an impact on the lives of these people. And honestly, it was a very solemn time for me, because I'm thinking, Joy, it's not really about the traveling, and it's not about, the experience of the country.
This is what it's about.
It's about right here. This is about teaching these individuals about, about who God is, and more so, showing them who God is really. So for me, that was my very first experience in Friday night meetings. My local classes now, the everyday classes, they weren't big. My classes, they weren't big. We had children in the afternoon, like right after school hours. They would be the younger children. And I would have like maybe 4 or 5 in one class. I remember having 4 or 5 little children in one class. And in, like, say after them, there would be the youth, like the school, primary, secondary school children. They would be coming in after that. There'll be like sometimes 10, that kind of number, 10 to maybe 9, 10 of them. Then in the evening now, where, after work hours, we'd have a bigger class, because we had policemen, we had doctors, we had lawyers, whoever, just the professional people coming into the center in the evening times. So those were I found my kind of, the afternoon, obviously, with the little ones. I really loved the little ones, because it was easier dealing with them. It was a bit intimidating approaching adults, because obviously I hadn't taught before, adults really. I hadn't taught them before, and it was a bit, you don't know what to expect. It was a bit daunting, but it was fine. It through much prayer, I would say, and trial and error, because you'd find that they would give their feedback as well to the director. And that was what I found, that even though they would smile with you in the classes, they would be going back to the directors, and they would be telling them what they liked or what they didn't like. But to be honest with you, sometimes you would get a bit, stroppy with the fact that, oh, so you were pretending in class. And then, but it was helpful because what I tried to do was to adapt to whatever, critique I got, even though whether I liked it or not. I tried to, adjust the for them to have a more, pleasant experience in the class. So I was thankful for that. But my first time, it was, like I said, it was a bit daunting meeting everybody, but they were very warm people. They were very warm and friendly. Some of them you're unsure because of the blank face. Some of them had very blank faces just staring at you because obviously they didn't understand what you were saying. And you learned as a native as well to kind of slow down. Don't know if you had that, Michelle, where you were slowing down your words and your sentences like this for them to be able to understand you.
Listen,
It was weird.
It's interesting that you even mentioned the fact that like they would give a feedback to the director, to the secretary, because my first assignment was in Kaohsiung. Like I said, I got there, and then I was enjoying myself. I'm going to school and I'm teaching my kids, and I'm like, and then I get feedback that no, they're not understanding me. And I am thrown for a loop, and I'm like, what? They are not understanding my English. And my boss nicely told me that they wanted American English or British English. That's what I got. I'm coming from the Caribbean island. I am speaking Caribbean. So, how do I figure out how to, I was not yet living in America. My accent was completely Caribbean. And so there's some words that you say in English in the Caribbean that sounds very different from the way an American would say it, the way a British person would say it. And these were the English tones and accents that they wanted to hear. So Michelle, you have to learn how to speak American so that you can teach these people. So, my director told me that, how about this? How about we switch your school? Maybe this other school would be a little bit more adaptable because they had teachers from South Africa who had South African accents, and they were able to kind of adapt to their accents. So I was told that I was going to be moved. How was I feeling? I was floored. I was feeling disappointed. I was feeling a little sad. I was feeling like I failed a little bit. But there was one good thing about that move. I was going to my brother's school. So I was like, okay, I can deal with that. I want to be where my brother is, because I was there and I was kind of feeling sometimes a little bit lonely because my roommate there prior to that had already had her group of friends. So I was trying to, learning or making friends. So within maybe 3 weeks, if that long, I was shipped off to another school, and that school was in Pingdong, which was where I spent the rest of my time in Taiwan, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it there. So it was like the best thing that happened for me, even though it came with sort of a negative sort of thing, but it was something for me to grow and learn from. So yeah, I was moved, and my classes, I ended up with the smallest classroom in Pingdong, but I ended up with a lot of students, a lot of friends. And like you said, I did have to learn how to change my words. I had to adapt to the accent. I had to learn how to speak slower. So I would say, good morning, everyone. Welcome to my class. I am Michelle. And that was the same similar experience that we had in teaching English. You just have to slow down. You can't go as fast as this because they won't understand. Yeah. So
it's similar. It's similar. The same. It's the same similar thing. I would find myself talking, sometimes you get carried away, especially in conversational classes, because they said they want the conversational classes to be where they can understand, but they need to be able to also follow you. So you would have more freedom in the conversational classes because you'd be talking, and sometimes you'd be going like 20 miles an hour in your speech, and they're looking at you like this because obviously they're not understanding a word you're saying. And you find that you wanted them to understand because obviously you want them to engage with you. And it's all about communication, isn't it? Language is all about communication. So you want them to understand what you're saying. And so because of this, you'd have to, deliberately slow down your speech. What I've learned, even in those experiences, number one, like I said before, with my Friday night lessons, the Lord showed me really what it was all about, because I remember going there and the I get caught up, and I know we'll be talking about the culture, but it was like I was like a celebrity there because they've never seen a black woman before. They've seen black men because there were quite a few refugees around from Sudan and so on who were, coming into the Ukraine seeking refugee status. And so I was in where I was, Levobrezhna, in Kiev. I was the only black woman. I didn't see anybody else living around there. And so when I was walking, people would be staring and looking on the train. People would be just staring. And there's one thing I noticed as well. When I went there, in our culture, when you stare at someone and your eyes make four, you would look away, right? They would not look away. And it was so intimidating. They would be staring at you. And so even from that, you get caught up in that, and, you get caught up in that side of things. But then the Lord reined me in that particular Friday night because I don't know what I expected, to be honest with you. We shared our experience, the idea we have of, getting funds to help fund our education and, being able to travel and see the culture. But it's the service bit of it that the Lord actually showed me. And that was a Friday night. And I learned that this was why you're here. You're here to represent me. You're here to teach these people about God.
Yes.
And there's so many experiences that I had and that you have as a teacher. And there's one thing I also learned, Michelle. They reverence their teachers.
Yes.
They
Respect.
listen. What I remember, one parent came into me and she said, "Oh, Yana, she loves chocolate, and there's nothing I can do to get her to. I want her to stop. I want her to have it so and so and so." Obviously, she wasn't speaking to me at this smile, with these clear English, but she was trying to say to me, "Help!" She's asking me for help, and I'm thinking, "Come to me for help? You're the mom, But when I spoke to Yana about, chocolate and her, easing down and waiting until mommy gives it to her, whatever. To be honest with you, the child went home and she adapted.
Wow.
They listen to their teacher. When you're teaching in the classrooms, they hang on to every word you say, even in conversational. And so I realized that was why the Lord had us there, because these people, yes, they're learning the language, but they're very much listening to what you're saying, and they will apply it, to their lives. There's so many more experiences that I could share, of even people with their personal issues coming to me. But, obviously we'll share it another time. But those were some of the lessons that I learned initially going there, that my purpose there was more than just the culture, the travel. It was really to reach souls for Christ.
Yeah. Yeah. Important lessons. I feel like in this particular part of my journey there, I learned that, you know, every disappointment was can be a blessing. There's a silver line in every cloud. There's something good, even though I was shipped off and I felt like I failed somewhat because they weren't understanding me. I was enjoying my teaching classes and they were not understanding me and they wanted what they wanted. In that particular part of my journey, I learned that even though I was shipped off to another school because I wasn't understood by my students, and my students particularly wanted something, I learned that in every disappointment is a blessing, and that there's a silver lining behind every dark cloud. That there God guides your steps. I had to sit back and take a look back into where I was coming from and the way he led me, and realize that, you know what, even though I wasn't as successful in this particular part of the journey, that God was growing me and teaching me, and also preparing me for what I would meet when I got to Pingdong, because I met someone who I became very close to, who was like, we call each other sisters, and she eventually got baptized. And I can say that I at least know at least one or two or several people who got baptized as part of how God used me.
Amen.
So I needed to have been where I was sent, even though it wasn't pleasant news that got me there.
And that's what I was going to say, that maybe all along this was what the Lord wanted
Right.
for you. Do you understand?
Yes.
Like we said before, initially starting these videos, you know, the Lord has his way and
sure.
his plan for our lives.
For sure.
And so sometimes it may steer off into another, but then he veers you back to where exactly
Where you
he
need
wants
to
you
be.
to serve. He wanted you to be serving at that very
Kingdom.
place. Yes.
So yeah, that's it for lessons learned at this part of the leg. Next episode, we will share part 2 of the students, because there's so much to tell about our
So much.
students. So we'll see you next time. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share.
Bye. Oh my goodness.
All right, and
One more.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Joy.
I live in the US,
And I live in England
and we were across the world
on a mission.